Hey everyone, it's Lindsay Hoffman and welcome to the Dose of Bliss show. Today we have personal development YouTuber Aimee Wellington. Her channel is Aimee Rebecca. I'll link it all below. I'm a huge fan of her. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about how to learn how to love after heartbreak. Her channel is just so inspirational. You know, everyone who follows my channel loves personal development, personal growth, self-love, advice, and her channel is one of the people I follow for advice. So I just can't wait to share her tips. And share them with you guys and for you guys to meet her. And she's coming all the way from Wales. It's so exciting.
That's why it's dark here.
So I think where we should just get started is your story. So what have you been dealing with? What has been your journey to heal?
Okay, so set the stage. 2020, everyone's least favorite year. I got engaged to the man I thought was the love of my life. I was very, very happy. I was living a completely different life then. I was actually living in Bahrain. I'm from Wales. My ex was from California. We met there and I was just in a little bubble, a little happiness bubble. We decided, because he had to move back to California for work, that I would give up my job in Bahrain and we would both move back there. And it was about 5 weeks after I had given up my job, given up my apartment. I came back home to visit my parents and we broke up. And suddenly it was like I went from having a fiance and a job and an apartment and this life that I loved to being like, I don't even know where I live or now or what I do. It was crazy.
So what did that feel like? Because I think everyone in their life, like you think you're going to be a certain way by a certain age. It's kind of like you had everything you wanted and then it was all gone. What was that like?
It was, I don't even know that I can it's going to sound like I'm exaggerating, but it felt like the world had ended. Like I was completely shattered as a person. Mm-hmm. I felt completely heartbroken, doesn't cover it. Like my heart was broken, but the whole of me was broken, because all those kinds of things, you know, like you define yourself by like what you do and where you live and your relationship status and all these different things that kind of piece together to make you who you are. In the space of a month, I didn't have any of those same things. And I just felt like I didn't even know who I was.
Yeah, I totally understand. I've been through experiences like that myself. So during that time, what did you find out about yourself? Like, was there anything about your identity that you were like, oh, why did I identify with this? Or, you know, you kind of realized the source of who you are. What was that for you?
I realized, this is quite deep. Here we go. Okay. I realized that I had been, for a really long time, letting other people validate me. So all of my self-worth was wrapped up in how other people perceived me and people I was in relationships with specifically. So every time I would have a relationship that ended, it would like steal away a piece of me because it made me feel less worthy. Like if I was good enough, then that person would have stayed. If I was good enough, that person would have treated me better. And it wasn't until that last breakup where it completely fell apart and I started to kind of put the pieces back together and realized, oh, wow, this is a hot mess. Mm-hmm. Like I've been letting other people define how I think about myself, and it's not a good way to be.
So how did you find that out? Like, what did you do? Did you go to therapy? Were you sitting thinking about yourself? Obviously, I follow your channel and I watched all of these phases, but for my followers and everyone listening.
Yeah, I did everything. So I bought all the personal development books. I went to therapy, I went to counseling, and I got a life coach. And I in a sense, I was lucky because we were still in lockdown. So I had nothing but time to just focus on myself and do really introspective work. And it was a slow process. Like it's not something that happens overnight. Like when we talk about it now, it seems like, oh yeah, I was so sad and now I'm so happy. But it was a long process and it was a difficult process. But yeah, I tried a little bit of everything.
I always say like healing, people think your mind is going to like heal in like a heartbeat. Like And it's really like, if you broke your leg, you're not going to be like, oh, my leg is going to be back together tomorrow. It's going to take at least 6 months, maybe a year. You have to do physical therapy. It's like, why don't we view our mind and our mental health the same way? It's not just like, I snap my fingers and I'm happy. It's a lifestyle change. It's like a daily workout.
Yeah, definitely.
So what sort of things did you implement to like figure these things out about yourself and to move forward?
So at first I was, like I said, I did a lot of like therapy, counseling, life coaching, everything. Anyone I could get my hands on to help me, I was like, yes, all of you, I want all of you to help. I did a lot of journaling, I did a lot of meditating, and then I actually just by fluke chance saw a tarot reader who said to me, and she didn't know anything about my life. She said, you're really focused on where you were this time last year. And now you need to start focusing on where you're going to be this time next year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, that's my goal. I can't keep living in the past. Living in the present is still kind of difficult for me. It's still painful. I'm still not really sure who I am at the moment. So what I can do is figure out, okay, where do I want to be by this time next year and how am I going to get there? And I put all my energy into that.
So what were the things you're thinking of, like where you wanted to be?
So I was thinking, like, what kind of person do I want to be? So I had a whole like chart of things. I wanted to be more confident. I wanted to be more healthy. I wanted to be more financially abundant. I had a whole list of all these different things that I wanted, and they weren't like specific goals. It wasn't like, I want to be working at this job.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just, this is how I want to be, and this is how I want to feel. I want to be happy. I want to be confident. I want to be less stressed.
You know, it's funny because I did the same thing on my vision board.
Really?
I used to put on my board everything I exactly wanted. And instead I put how I wanted to feel. I like, you're really resonating with me right now, because it sounds like you're kind of like me. You kind of think about how others feel and the intent that you put out there, but you don't think about how you're going to feel and like the things that you're going to receive. So it's like, you can have everything you want in life. Like, you had all these things that you wanted, but how were you really feeling? Because those things are interchangeable. Like, a relationship could change, a job can change, but the one thing constant is you. And so what matters is how you feel. That everything coming into your life, you should feel good. Because what if something's better that you wouldn't have even visualized?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing my life coach said to me was, like, before I like pulled myself out of the pit, she was like, you have to learn to just be content. And I was like, how am I going to be content when everything around me is wrong? Nothing's going right. And she was like, if you can be content now, then you'll never be sad.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And finding like comfort and discomfort, like being okay with change, being okay with like uncertainty, because nothing's really certain. So if you're just okay, it's like going down a roller coaster. I hate going on rides because you can't stop the ride when it's like dropping, when you want to get off. It's like, you have to be okay with that uncertainty in life.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a hot mess either way. Like, there are going to be good times and there are going to be bad times. And if you try and control it, you're just going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it's kind of just learning to like, really, like, would you say learning to love after heartbreak is really more like learning to like love yourself and like find the things that you were seeking in someone else within you?
Yeah, definitely. It's about realizing that you are enough. This is something I say all day, every day. I have it as a screensaver on my phone, screensaver on my laptop. I have it on Post-it notes. Just, you are enough. Like, if someone comes into my life and they can add to my happiness, then that is fantastic. And like, I'm so happy for myself that that happened, you know? But if it doesn't, then that's fine, because I'm happy enough by myself. It's about realizing you don't need someone else to complete you. You don't need someone else to make you happy, because if you rely on someone else to bring you those things, then what happens if that person leaves? They take all of that good stuff with them.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so obviously it's been some time now, but do you see yourself ever reverting to those negative thoughts? Because I personally, I have my own negative thoughts. Everyone's like, oh, you're so happy all the time. You're always manifesting. Like, how are you just happy? And I always say, I'm not always happy. Like, I see like the thought pattern and I'm just like, stop, like reroute over here. What is your process with that?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's about being able to see it and think, wait, no, this isn't right. Because all these negative things we say to ourselves, they're not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a fact. Like if I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I'm so unattractive, or no one will ever want to be with me. Like that's not a proven fact. Like that's just some opinion that I have of myself for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can stop myself and say, hey, that's not even the truth, like just stop. Just think about something more positive. And I mean, it's easier said than done. But as you'll probably know, like with practice, it does get easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like rewiring your brain. I think people just think it's a snap of a finger, or like, how could that change anything? I have so many people ask me that, but it's true. It's like studying for a test or something. Like what you believe is kind of what keeps happening. Like, so if you want to be better, you have to, like, you can either be happy or not. So you have to choose to be who you want to be. It's like that TikTok where it's like, where she's saying, where Rihanna says she needs to like pretend, because what's she gonna do, lay in bed like all day? Like it's okay to lay in bed all day sometimes, but it's just like, you know, if you want to be something, you want to be happy, you have to fight for it. You have to just keep going and tell yourself what you want to hear. And when you feel those triggers of something bringing you down, be like, no, this is not true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. 100%.
Would you also say like something that I found recently is like, I mean, I'm finding all these things on TikTok and like reels, but there was an interesting thing I found where it said, um, it's people will show you how they will love you, and you get to choose if that's like what you want. Have you learned anything along with that? Like finding that you need to really just kind of like you have control in a sense, because you can choose how you want people to treat you, and you also can trust yourself. Like trusting yourself and your judgments is really like the deepest love.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's been a real key like lesson that I've learned. I had a string of like not great relationships before I got engaged. And I felt like it was self-perpetuating, because every time I would get like be in a relationship where I wasn't treated so well, it would make me think, well, what's wrong with me? Why don't I deserve to be treated well? And then it would lower my standards, because I'm thinking, well, there must be something wrong with me. I don't deserve to be treated well, which just opens the door for all like the walking red flags within a 10-mile area to just come on in. Because if you have low standards, then the people you're attracting are going to be the people who are going to not treat you well. Whereas if you raise your standards, other people have the option. Either they can meet your standards or they can leave.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that way you're always going to be surrounded by people who treat you well.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's like a standard example that you like raised and that you changed, and how are you doing that?
I'm still working on it, but I'm not a good communicator in relationships. That's something I know about myself. But it's also something that I'm trying to work on, not just in romantic relationships, but just in life. So that is something that I'm now working on, like with people in my life, is if I have a problem, being able to sit down and speak to them about it. And if they then react badly to me just like bringing something to the table that's been bothering me, I say like, I'm really sorry, but you can't speak to me like that. Mm-hmm. Like I'm willing to have like a discussion about it. This is something that I think we need to talk about, but you can't raise your voice at me like that. Mm-hmm. Which is something I would have put up with in the past. Like I just thought like, oh yeah, I'm being shouted at, cool, that's standard. And now I'm like, no, people don't get to talk to me that way.
It's so crazy that we're so similar, because I've had like, we'll have to talk more about this after, but I've had exactly the same experiences. It's the same exact thing I'm working on, which is why I'm glad I have you here, because there's so many people. But what I love that you've done is you've figured out what you're going to do in those situations. I think things like that's really helpful, is learning like your sentence of what you're going to say. Like whatever, maybe it's natural for you to sit and let someone treat you how you don't want to be treated or something, and you don't know. Now you have like a plan. Like no matter what I naturally feel, I know I'm going to say the sentence, and like, I don't know, maybe go take some space till we calm down or whatever it is. You have like your go-to response. So in those moments, you don't have to get all flustered or worry about this or that. You just know what to do in order to, you know, attract what you want to you in the situations.
Yeah. And it's easy. Like it doesn't need to be a big song and dance. Like I've realized that it's literally just saying to someone like, I don't deserve to be spoken to that way. Mm-hmm. I don't deserve to have you raise your voice at me. And that's all, because no one can argue with that. No one can come back. What are they going to say? Yes, you do. Like, no, there's no argument to that. So it's simple but effective.
Mm-hmm. And also something I was thinking too is I have a similar issue where you get scared of someone going to blow up at you. I think everyone feels like that way in a sense. For whatever reason, someone's afraid they're going to hurt someone's feelings when they talk to them. And the thing that I'm realizing now myself is if you say something to a person, how they're going to react is going to tell you a lot about the person. Because what if you talk to the person and they're really, really understanding? It's not even that situation. Well, then you know this is somebody I want to surround myself with. Now, if they blow up, you think, okay, maybe this isn't someone I want to surround myself with. Is this person going to be receptive if I tell them how I feel? And then you can make your decision from there, which is something I never, for some reason, thought before. You're just like, oh, like negative reinforcement. I'm scared. But you're like, no, this is like evidence to like make a decision.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that before, but yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this stuff, and like I said too, and that's something I'm like, why did I not think that? Like, instead of thinking about that, think about, oh, like this isn't what I want. Like, I want someone to react how I would, which is compassionate and understanding and willing to listen and talk.
Yeah, it's a great way actually of making sure you are around the people you want to be around.
Yeah, like you have the choice. You're like, oh, well, this doesn't go how, if this person's, you observe the way someone's reacting. Are they respecting your boundaries? Because if they aren't able, no one's perfect, obviously. You can catch me on a bad day and I'll be upset, but I will always listen and come back and talk to you. I want to be better. But if there's someone who just keeps repeating it, you're like, oh, well, what do I need to see anymore? I've seen the evidence. So yeah, where I make my decision to move on.
Yeah, I like that.
So what else were you doing to learn how to love? Like, is there anything else that you noticed? Or, when I watched your channel, I noticed you've implemented like a lot of plans for like your goals. What specific have you been doing?
Okay, so I'm a Virgo, so I am quite obsessive with everything. But like particularly, so I have a personal development binder.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you have it around you right now? That'd be cool to show everybody, but if it's too
no, it's downstairs. I should have brought it up with me. But I have a bunch of stuff in there. So I like to set myself goals in blocks of 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I like to set myself anywhere from like 3 to 5 short-term goals. Just like small things that are quite achievable. I like to write down because I'm doing, I call it my This Time Next Year challenge, where I'm trying to be the person I want to be by this time next year. I write down one small thing I've done every day to bring me closer to that person. Mm-hmm. So that's in that binder. I also have a big reading list of all the personal development books that I want to work through. Oh, and this is completely a little bit off topic, but it just came to me and I want to bring it up. I've been using one of those mood trackers, where you color in.
Oh, I have one of those too, or the smiley face. Yeah.
I've learned so much about my mood.
Oh my God, what have you learned?
So I've learned that I'm useless on a Monday. I don't think I've had one like yellow Monday since the year began, which isn't that surprising because I'm not much of a Monday person. But what I've realized is as the weeks have gone on, I've had more, like yellow for me is a happy day. So I've had more yellow days. And I sat down the other night and I was like, why am I suddenly so much happier? And I realized it was because at the end of the day, I was having to sit down and evaluate my day and think, okay, was I happy today? Was I predominantly stressed? Like, how was I feeling? And then I was thinking more about like the things I was doing throughout the day, like the small things that were making me happy. Like one night I finished, this is going to sound so ridiculous, but one night I finished the evening with like a hot glass of milk. Like I frothed up some oat milk, put in a little vanilla, and I put that in there. And I was like, oh, well, now I'm really happy. So I colored my little square in yellow and I was like, I'm really happy. And then that made me realize all these small things that I'm doing that make my day better. And then I'm doing more of them.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but I would never have even thought like, oh, that milk made me really happy, or like, you know, stopping for a coffee on the way home made me really happy. But because I'm sitting at the end of the day and analyzing the day, I'm able to pick out specific things that have made me happy and then replicate it.
That's like amazing. And, you know, a lot of people ask me, like, when I make vision boards and when I do this stuff, they're like, what does it do? And it's like, because it actually helps you realize, like, if something's stressing you out, like if you don't want to work on a goal and you're like, why won't I write this down or put this on my vision board? Why is this making me unhappy? Like, what's going on there? Or if you notice, like, the more, like, mine has smiley faces that I color in, and I'm like, oh, like, I see the pattern of me getting happier. Like, I was sad and angry all these days. Now it's turning to smileys, and you're writing down the same thing, and you start to identify these things and you start to realize it. And if you're not doing that, you don't realize it. And you might be sad for days and not even realize you're sad either. So it's like being able to assess that. And then you're like, oh, I am happy. You know, it's a really good exercise I think people should do. And you're like inspiring me myself, because I have my books, but I don't always do them every day.
No, this is something I started at the beginning of the year. And it wasn't until a couple of nights ago, I was like, wow, this is having a really big impact on my life. And it's such a small thing.
Yeah, it's so, and you don't realize it. People think it's a big thing. And it's just like one thing that makes you happy every day. It could be anything. Like, I don't think it's funny at all about like the milk that you had before bed. It's like, that made you really happy. And it's like, it's because you're just taking care of yourself in little ways, even probably making the journal. Like, I sat down and I did this, you know, or making your bed. Like, if I make my bed in the morning, I'm like, oh, I achieved one goal today. You like, these weird little things really do make you feel like you're being productive.
Yeah. And I'm a big advocate for not trying to do big, huge, showy things of like, I'm trying to change my life and I'm going to do it in 30 days and it's going to be like a big song and dance. And it's like, you could make some really big improvements in your life in 30 days. But it is far better to say, I'm going to do one thing, one small thing every day that is going to enhance my life, because that is so much more sustainable. And I would rather do one small thing every day for the rest of my life than have 30 really big days of happiness and then be so wiped out from trying to maintain that I'm just like, oh, whatever, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, like a yo-yo diet. It's like, you don't want to yo-yo diet your happiness. You want it to be a lifestyle change. Like, this is what you're doing every day of your life. That's how you maintain it, versus, yeah, I'm just going to like be this person, and then like you can't keep it up.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you say is like the biggest change you noticed in the past year within yourself?
I love myself now. Not every day. And I'm not saying like I look in the mirror and I'm always like, wow, I'm so impressed by myself, because I'm not. Like, I have down days and I have days where I beat myself up. But I don't think in the past I had a very good relationship with myself. And I'd never stopped to even think about it. Like, how often do you stop and think like, oh, how do I feel about myself? We're always thinking about how we feel about other people and our relationships with them. But we spend so little time thinking about, do I like myself? Do I love myself? Do I think I'm a good person? And now I've put in all the work and I can honestly say like, yes, I like the person I am. I love myself. I don't want to be cheesy about it, but I do love myself.
What did you like identify that you were doing to yourself that you realized you didn't love yourself? Was it just that you were caring about other people, or was it also like maybe like because you were allowing other people to, your value to be based off of other people, that you were kind of denying yourself of your own things that you wanted? Like, was there anything specific you noticed that, you know, because I think in the past I went through a similar thing, being like, I don't love myself as much as I thought I did, which is like a really weird thought to have. Yeah. Like, is there like a thing you noticed where you're like, where you came to that point? Because if someone would have told me that like a long time ago, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that had never occurred to me to even question my relationship with myself. But when I look back now, I can see that I was just so full of fear. Like, I had what, you know, from the outside, like the perfect life, like lived in a really nice apartment, had a really good job. Like, if you look through my Instagram, you'd be like, that's the life I want to have. I was terrified every single day because I didn't feel worthy of the life that I was living. And I thought, any day now, all of it's going to go. My friends are going to turn around and realize that I'm not a nice enough person to hang around with. My fiance is going to turn around and realize I'm not good enough for he's too good for me. All these different things, I just had no belief in myself. Mm-hmm. And so it just caused such fear and anxiety in me because I felt like I was living this life that I didn't deserve.
Mm-hmm. And finally, when it's so interesting that when all of it's taken away from you, everything, that's the moment where you like realize that you were feeling those ways. It's almost like things like that are supposed to happen. Everything gets taken away so you can find within yourself and then kind of, you know, get all those things you want back, but actually now appreciate the moment and love yourself more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't appreciate those things. I remember talking to my life coach, and I talk about her a lot because she is the person I talk to most about these things. But I remember talking to her and one of my first sessions and being like, but I was so happy. I was so happy. I used to wake up every day and be like, I'm so happy. I love my life. And she was like, that's not happiness. That's like being a little bit manic about it. Yeah. That's just being like, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm so terrified that I'm not going to be happy tomorrow that I just need to like suck in all the happiness right now. Mm-hmm. And that's like a scarcity mindset, right? I need to be so happy today because I'm scared that I might not have this same happiness tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting that you say that, because that's something I noticed about myself too. I'd get like overly happy. It sounds so weird, but you said, it's almost like a manic thing where you're like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I love all this so much. And you like, don't even realize and you feel that way in the moment, but it's also like overwhelming actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And I used to literally, I would sit and I would be with people and I'd be like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy right now. Like, I'm so happy that this is my life. I'm so glad that all these things are happening. And I must have sounded like a crazy person. I must have sounded bizarre.
I can imagine if we were sitting together, we would both be like, I'm having so much fun. I'm together. Like I'm the same person. It's so like, it's interesting to see though, like a lot of people deal with that and you don't hear the spectrum of it, because when you see someone like super happy, and it's like, we were like happy in a sense in those moments, but you don't realize sometimes it could be a form kind of anxiety, really, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And you don't see it, and you don't even feel it, I think, until you look back in hindsight.
Yeah, for me, I realized a lot of it was like, I was happy, but it was like anxiety. Like it was like the scarcity mindset we were talking about. Like you're just trying to grab at it while you have it.
Yeah.
Versus just be present and like relax, slow down.
Yeah. And like going back to what I said earlier about like just being content, and instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy, I need to like soak all of this in and I'm just like enjoy every second of it right now because it might not last. If you can just find contentment with where you're at, it doesn't have to be like major happiness every day. I'm not majorly happy every day, but I am always content, and that's steady. And so I don't have to worry about that disappearing.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So what would you say would be like your top 3 tips for someone learning to love after heartbreak? And I guess we're talking about happiness as well, learning to be happy and love yourself.
I guess, okay, no. First one would be positive affirmations. Mm-hmm. And my favorite is always, I am enough. Mm-hmm. And and the first few weeks that I was saying that, I cried every time I said it because I didn't believe it. So for anyone who's trying that one out and just feels like the ick about it, it does get better and you do start to believe it. So positive affirmations, finding someone you can talk to. If you can't get a life coach or a counselor, just finding a friend who's not going to give you their opinion about it. Mm-hmm. Just letting you get it out. Because the longer stuff festers in your brain, the worse it becomes. And if you can just get it out of your head, you could even do that by journaling, that works too. But not necessarily having someone try and fix the problem for you, but just let you air it out. Mm-hmm. I found that really helpful. And the third thing has got to be just doing one small thing to make yourself happy every day. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, when you are dealing with heartbreak, that could literally just be like getting out of bed and having a coffee. And if that's, what's going to make you happy, and then you get back into bed because you feel so miserable, okay, but you had that coffee and that's a positive thing. Mm-hmm. And then you start to accumulate more and more moments of happiness.
Yeah, I like that. I love how it's just like all these things are really doable little things and you don't even realize, where you're just like, you know what, I got out of bed today. At least I tried one thing today to be better. And that's really the best way to learn to love yourself. So We only have like a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, like, what would be your advice to your younger self, knowing everything you've learned now?
I don't know, because as much as I've made some really terrible decisions in my life, I don't know that I would want her to know anything then that I know now, because I feel like I had to learn it in the time I learned it.
I
Like
think
I try and give my niece advice all the time. She's 12. I try and give her advice and it's like falling on deaf ears because she's too young. She hasn't had the experience. And I think having the advice without the experience, it just doesn't work.
yeah, that's true. And like, that's where you got to. I mean, I think that's kind of a show of healing and learning to love yourself. Like, kind of in a sense that like, I still wouldn't have changed any of the pain that I went through because now it made me where I am right now.
Yeah.
I learned everything I need to know. So I guess you just tell yourself like, this is happening for a reason, really.
Yeah. I would just be like, hang on in there. You're going to be fine.
So is there anything else that you want everybody to know?
Oh, if anybody has TikTok, you can follow along on my This Time Next Year challenge because I try and post the one happy thing that I do every day on a little TikTok. So if you're interested to know what I've been doing, you can find it there.
Yeah, I was actually going to say next, like, where can everybody follow you?
Oh, so on YouTube, I'm Aimee Rebecca. And on Instagram and TikTok, I am Aimee_oddball. Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all so much for watching. Bye.